Hi guys, we continue our discussion of the Arthashastra by Vishnugupta Chanakya, and we'll continue some discussions on the economics and finances of the day. And remember, we haven't yet entered the parts written directly by Chanakya himself. We are still getting a brief gist of things from the translator himself, Mr. L.N. Rangarajan. So, money and coinage. The coin most often mentioned in the text is the pan, P-A-N-A, pana or pana. But it's actually pronounced as pan, as you can see in the Chanakya TV series of Doordarshan in the 90s made by Dr. Chandraprakash Dwivedi. So the coin most often mentioned in the text is the pan, which is subdivided as follows. 16 mashak to a pan and 4 kakanis to a mashak. The coinage in circulation was silver coins of 1, half, quarter and 1/8 pan, and copper coins of 1 mashak, half a mashak, 1 kakani and half a kakani. An indication of how much a pan was worth is given in a later chapter. The value of the coinage was sought to be maintained by stringent punishments for counterfeiting. A special official, the coin examiner, certified the genuineness of coins, collected the taxes and charges on coinage and collected the taxes and charges on coinage and punished those who bought, sold or examined coins. The punishment for bringing counterfeit money into the storehouse was the lowest standard penalty for making it or putting it into circulation, 1000 pan, and for paying it into the government treasury, death. The detection of counterfeiting is also dealt in a later chapter. Now we get into the public and the private sector. Land, the most important natural resource, was primarily in the public sector, with the state holding all virgin land, forests and water resources. Arable land, however, was both in the public and the private sectors. Crown lands, ones belonging to the king obviously. Crown lands were either directly cultivated by the chief superintendent of crown lands or leased out to tenants. Land was granted either in perpetuity or for a limited period, on a tax-paying or on a tax-exempt basis. The reference to sale of a field, a park, an embankment, a water tank or a reservoir indicates that such immovable property associated with arable land could also be privately owned with the title transferable by sale. As with land, animals like cows, sheep and goats were also in both sectors, in crown herds and private herds. Deer, birds, wild animals caught in traps or fish were also considered private property since their theft was a punishable offense. Mining and fishing were also in both sectors. In these two cases, the concerned official is instructed to reserve for the crown mines or fishing areas that are easily exploited at lower cost and to lease out the difficult ones. While the actual making of salt was done by leasees, the people who have the lease of salt pans, the chief salt commissioner collected the revenue before it could be marketed on both locally produced and imported salt. The state monopolies on the manufacture and sale of alcoholic liquor and on gambling and betting have been referred to earlier. In addition to prostitution, there was a number of economic activities which were strictly controlled by the state. Sale, purchase and manufacture of gold, silver or precious stones was one. Buying precious metals secretly or from disreputable persons or receiving stolen metal were all punishable offences. The state and private merchants, both local and foreign, were involved in trade. The chief controller of state trading was responsible for the equitable distribution of local and foreign goods, buffer stocking, sale of crown commodities and public distribution. He could appoint private traders as agents for the sale at fixed prices of crown commodities. He could appoint private traders as agents for the sale at fixed prices of crown commodities or sell them direct to the public through state-owned retail outlets. The chief controller of private trading kept a watch over merchants by inspecting periodically their weights and measures and ensuring that they did not hoard, adulterate or add excessive markups. Tax policy. Details of the different taxes levied are given under sources of revenue, which we will come to later. The tax policy distinguished between those who had to pay a tax and those exempt from it. Exemption from tax could be granted in perpetuity to Brahmins with the right to sell or mortgage or as a prerequisite of office to specified officials so long as they held that office and without the right to sell or mortgage. Another kind of exemption for limited periods ranging between 2 to 5 years was used as an incentive to increase production by granting it to those who brought dry land under cultivation, and those who renovated or built irrigation works. The king was, however, advised to treat leniently, like a father would treat his son, those whose exemptions had ceased to be effective. So see, even Chanakya understood the importance of tax breaks, which Abhijit Banerjee does not understand. Of course, he has a Nobel, so he might be more knowledgeable. The distinction between taxpayers and tax exempted affected the rights to residence and sale of property. A taxpayer could not settle in a tax exempt village and could sell. This is a nice concept. The distinction between taxpayers and the tax exempted affected the rights to residence and sale of property. A taxpayer could not settle in a tax exempt village and could sell or mortgage his land only to another taxpayer. Tax exempt land could be sold only by one holding similar land. However, a tax exempt person could live in a tax paying village and continue to enjoy his right of ownership of land in a tax exempt village. Now, relative merits of different types of economic activity. Most of the productive economic activity took place in the Janpad. Power comes from the countryside, which is the source of all activities. This is a direct quote from Mr. Chanakya himself. An ideal Janpad was one which was easily defended and which had a lot of productive land with cultivable fields, mines, timber forests, elephant forests and pastures. It should be capable of producing a wide variety of commodities, thus supporting the native population as well as outsiders who might immigrate in times of trouble in their own countries. It should be rich enough to support a high level of taxation and a large army. Its people should be predominantly agriculturalists, artisans and craftsmen, devoted to work, honest, loyal and intelligent. Agriculture was the most important economic activity. Cultivable, now we are getting another direct quote from Chanakya. He says, cultivable land is better than mines because mines fill only the treasury while agricultural production fills both the treasury and the storehouses. The king had to ensure, the quote is over. Now we get back to the translator. The king had to ensure that agriculture was protected from harassment by not levying onerous taxes or fines and by not making undue demands for free labor. See, this is such good governance. This is exactly opposite of a socialist government and an Ashokan state and a Nehruvian system of governance, which we had until 1991, even to some extent to this day. No, not really, but listen to this again. The king had to ensure that agriculture was protected from harassment by not levying onerous taxes or fines and by not making undue demands for free labor. Other kinds of economic activity were building forts, that is defense preparedness, so as to ensure a safe haven for the king and the people in times of trouble. Also building waterworks and reservoirs as the source of crops. Building trade routes as the means of outmaneuvering the enemy, because through them the king could send secret agents and bring in weapons and other war material. Mines as the source of war material. Productive forests for providing material for building forts, carriages and chariots. Elephant forests for capturing elephants and animal herds for providing cattle, horses, donkeys and camels. Availability of water was important. It was better to acquire a small tract of land with flowing water than a larger drier one. Among forests, one watered by a river was better because it was self-sustaining and provided shelter in times of calamities. It was necessary to build storage reservoirs because the water stored after a good rainfall could be made available continuously for irrigation. A dam built to impound the water of a flowing river was better than a reservoir to which water had to be brought by man-made canals. When damming rivers, preference should be given to one which irrigated a larger area. Mines should be easily accessible, exploitable at low cost, and yield valuable minerals. Kautilya believed that it was better to have a large production of low-value minerals than a small production of high-value ones. Productive forests should be large, near the borders of the country, with a river and yield material of high value. Elephant forests should be located on the border near a weak enemy. Kautilya believed that a large number of comparatively dull elephants was preferable to a few brave ones, and that elephant forests were more important than other kinds because, quote-unquote, one depends on elephants for the destruction of the enemy's forces. This is a direct quote from Chanakya. It was better, now we are getting into the gist again. It was better to have a large number of trade routes even if they were not all built to high standards. Kautilya's order of preference for establishing trade routes is land route, preferably to the south, then a water route on the coast, then an inland waterway. Cart tracks and tracks usable by draught animals were to be preferred to footpaths.